Let's go ahead and get into the game right now.
I say 2-1 too.
Oh.
Yeah, WhiteRa is more than capable of.
Well, he's tricky, man. So let's talk about how tricky he is. We've seen a multitude of builds coming out from him. What's so important with WhiteRa, in my opinion, is the fact that he uses warp prisms when people don't normally use them. And what do I mean by that? Normally, you know, things stabilize. Protoss gets their base, Zerg gets their base, and you just split half map, and then people start using warp prisms. It shouldn't be like that. I think warp prisms should be used all around, always, because it's just a great way to stop your opponent from really getting any sort of momentum with their economy. And definitely Zerg is a race where they like to really gain their economy before actually making a lot of units.
And, you know, that's actually a really good thing to keep in mind. Let's introduce our players first before we go on into further discussion. In the bottom left, we have Mouse CC Morrow, Stefan Anderson, Mr. Anderson, the Teal Zerg in the bottom left corner. And he's up against the red Protoss, who is going Nexus first. His name is WhiteRa, Alexi. One of the most, I feel like he's one of the most respectable people in the community. Not just for his good manners, but because he's, you know, he has a wife and he's very responsible, really cool to every person he meets. And you've met WhiteRa multiple times. Oh yeah. And you know what's not matter though? This pylon that's faking Morrow out. Of course, there is no forge on the map just yet. Just beginning here for WhiteRa. So he's just trying to bait out a lot of units, but gets a surround, and that's actually a pretty big loss by WhiteRa.
Yeah, not only does he lose the probe, he loses this pylon. The pylon does absolutely nothing, so it's unfortunate. You can see WhiteRa is going for the forge before he actually puts on the gateway. A lot of people would have switched that just because it is hatch first from our Zerg hero over here. But Zerglings are on the way out, or are they on the way out? 2 Zerglings on the way out right now.
Yep, and with those Zerglings, Morrow will just control the map slowly. Now, he doesn't actually have any vision whatsoever. He does know that WhiteRa's in the top right corner. The Overlord did manage to make his path through, but you know he's just gonna take his time because a lot of Protosses on Shakur's plateau, it's almost a given that you'll go some kind of Nexus first or Forge fast expand because the way the base is, how easy it is to defend at your natural. All-ins are not that effective from Zerg on this map. And you know, let's talk a little bit more about the map dynamics, especially Shakur's been here since Season 2. Andre, what are your thoughts about it for Protoss versus Zerg?
It's interesting. The third base is always out and about. It's always in a position where Protoss can do something about it. Whether it's over here or it's over here, Protosses have Void Ray all-ins, they have Gateway all-ins, they have Immortal all-ins. That huge range is actually very difficult for Zergs to keep up with. So scouting is of the utmost importance on a map like Shakur's Plateau, just because the power of these things. You can actually have 2 double, oh my gosh, I'm fumbling so much, double Stargate Void Ray. That's a strategy that I've seen multiple times on this map as well. And
especially
actually, WhiteRa has employed that. Yes, I've actually seen him do carrier builds on a map like Shakur's Plateau. Just because Void Rays offer such a good, I guess, strength in this beginning stage, especially with the third being so far away. Creep connection is a little bit difficult, so you can't get your queens in defense. And then he just transitions into carriers like it's no thing.
No thing but a chicken wing. You see that for now, Morrow he gets pretty good information. His Zerg, he's keeping his Zergling alive. Sees the cannon placement. The forge is working, so he knows WhiteRa's timing on his +1. Now WhiteRa does place a Stargate, a very big proponent of Void Ray play in general. Now Morrow, he has also an Overlord to scout gas timing, so he sees the 3rd gas with no 4th gas just yet. And these are all really good indications for ZVP. Morrow was talking about how some of his gas timings have been kind of weird, but he actually might not see this coming. There's 2 Stargates in production.
Now, he did this build against Sen back a year ago. This is how long WhiteRa has been practicing this build. He's done this build for a year. When they were staying at my house, they did a best of 7 series. The winner gets free dinner from the other person. And he used this so many different times. It's really interesting. If it catches your opponent off guard, then obviously it does a ton of damage. But the transition after this, I don't know if he's actually going to go into carriers, but it's really crazy. If he can do significant damage against that 3rd base, it's almost unstoppable because the tech switches are just all over the place. It forces you to make Hydras, and, well, we know what every Zerg player says about Hydras.
Yeah, they don't really work out the way you imagine them. They're always a good idea at first, and Idra always says, man, I always get tricked to thinking Hydras can actually do something. Now, the Void Ray flies right over that Zergling, and so Morrow has complete vision of it. Now, I feel a little bit justified because before they play, I was talking yesterday to Morrow. He's like, well, how does WhiteRa do? He's been watching a lot of his VODs. I said, WhiteRa loves double Stargate play. And Morrow's like, yeah, sure, man. And this is exactly what WhiteRa is doing. Now, we do see one Phoenix and the second Void coming in, and that might throw Morrow off a little bit more. He has to react a little bit stronger because with 2 Void Rays and Phoenix, things can get kind of irky here.
And not only that, what's inevitable is this gateway push. You can see 5 gateways in construction. That puts them up to a total of 6 gateways. That's such a powerful continuation to this. So you're preparing this whole time against Void Rays and you know, not sentries, and Phoenixes. Yeah. And all of a sudden, a huge army just comes crashing in. You could be very unprepared if you don't start or producing units in time. So we'll see if Morrow can actually read this correct, because it'll be catastrophic if he just over drones and is forced into a really crummy position.
Well, what's interesting is because WhiteRa is spending so much time on his air units, but in the end, you know he wants to transition back to gateway units. He's got a couple gateways finishing up, and he did get that +1 pretty early on. And so WhiteRa is going to follow up with some 2-base aggression of some sort. Morrow starting his Hydralisk den finally, trying to see if he can pull it off the Queen. It is also going to get picked off. Now Morrow, if his natural becomes exposed for too long, he could be in a very tight situation. But his Queen is also trying to work on the Void Ray and the Spore Crawler, trying to see if he can pick off the other Void Ray, and it's very, very close. And WhiteRa is playing with fire here, but he's been doing a pretty good job thus far.
See, that's the thing. I don't think WhiteRa is actually doing enough damage, because the sheer amount of harvesters that have been out on the field is just so much more than his opponents. Now, you can see Zerglings and Hydras are inbound right now. He is getting upgrades. WhiteRa has the +1 attack. But is it enough at this point? These Void Rays are pretty badly damaged. Was the 2 Stargate opening that worth it? Now he is, he's expanding directly after this. I would think it's continued pressure. No.
Or following up, because did he catch any sight of the Hydras? Yeah, I think he did catch them. And, I mean, he got what he wanted. I mean, every Protoss would dream of the day Zerg overinvests in those Hydralisks. And so WhiteRa, I mean, normally a Protoss would prepare the Robo way earlier and then have the Colossus come out. That way, the Roaches and Hydras are ineffective, especially on a map like Chakur's Plateau. And WhiteRa changing up by getting a fast third. And you can see he's got a lot of resources banked up because he was supposed to gear for a huge push, but instead he's opting to go for the economic route.
I think he was thinking that, okay, I don't have a competent army right now. I don't have an army that can actually deal with any push, so let's develop that before I actually switch over to my Robotech. Where I think he should have taken a little bit of a risk, just said, okay, well, if I play that way, I'll be behind economically. Let me go ahead, just get my Robo off 2 base and get my Colossus out ASAP, and know that my opponent has a lot of supply just committed to this Roach Hydra, or just straight up Hydra, and then I can just get a composition upgrade after that.
We see that the Zergling does move in here, and I like what Morrow's doing. He's constantly keeping tabs on the Protoss army. Very, very important to recognize tech switches. Now, Morrow's in full production mode, and he might as well just go with something, because if he stalls for too long, WhiteRa will have Colossus out in no time. You can see the Robotics Bay about halfway done. So Morrow has a pretty thin timing, because there's not that significant amount of AoE damage that WhiteRa can really enforce whatsoever. And he's actually pretty vulnerable unless he engages in a very small, tight, choked area. And his upgrades aren't actually even that sharp either. Normally they get Twilight Council, get Blink, and +2. And WhiteRa is actually getting an armor upgrade as well. Very unconventional.
Yeah, I'm interested. I think he doesn't have a Twilight Council, that's why.
No, yeah, he doesn't. So he's been floating so much gas. And I've just been very curious. But we see, Morrow trying to move in here. The Mortal way out of position. What happened there, Andre?
I have no clue.
Miss rally, definitely.
Yeah. I think he thought he was an observer. Unfortunately, he was not. He just gets eaten up very easily. Now you can see the Hydra count, it is pretty big. Hydras are good. I don't want to retract my statement right there. Retract it.
Hydras are good if. Sorry. Hydras are good if.
If they're against
probes.
Yeah.
Hydras are good against probes.
Very good against probes.
And yeah, you know.
And units without upgrade.
Yes. Actually, that's true. You know, just regular stalkers and zealots and whatnot.
Exactly.
As long as
no
you can,
blink,
yeah.
and no sentries.
So, so if Protoss doesn't spend any of their money, basically, the Hydras will be really effective. Now, WhiteRa, this observer positioning is very key. He's able to track movements of the Zerg army. Keep in mind, again, there's only one Colossus out into the field, but then again, WhiteRa, we've seen crazy positioning in the past before when he played against Sheth, able to turn the tides of the battle. And here we go. We see the Corruptors trying to engage directly, but the Phoenix has something to say about it. The Roaches and Hydras unable to engage. The entire east side has been completely blocked off. And WhiteRa engaging in a very nice position, but does he have enough to hold off the Zerg army?
Colossus are gone at this point. I don't think so. All the sentries aren't actually able to get good force shields or follow-up force shields. There is another round of units coming out here, but a lot of gas is being traded. The advantage goes to Morrow in this position, and look at that. He just instantly remaxes. 35 Roaches were in queue.
Yeah, and that'll put Morrow way up in supply, 82 to over 170. We see that Morrow is on hot pursuit too. The Colossus won't live for that much longer. The third base completely vulnerable, and Morrow spread his creep to the point where even Hydras would be really fast in reinforcing. Morrow playing very well this game, and you can finally feel justified of why we picked him, at least for this series thus far.
Oh yeah, and there it is, ladies and gentlemen. GG gets called out by WhiteRa. Morrow takes the game and draws first blood.
Yeah. So game number 1 goes to Morrow on Shakur's Plateau. No victory graphic. All right. Well, so we were debating a lot about whether or not. Oh, there it is. And we were debating a lot whether or not Morrow would be able to go up against WhiteRa. WhiteRa historically has been winning against Morrow a lot, even after his Zerg switch. But it's been almost a year since they've been playing in a big tournament like this. And so there's been a lot of time, and Morrow's gotten a lot better. He's practicing Korea. Always talks about how he practiced with Koreans like Sage, one of the best PvZ players in the world, even though he's not really, you know, at the top of the GSL ranks. And Morrow's been practicing hard and showing off that he's got the diligence and the chops to compete.
I do want to say, going double Void Rays or double Stargate play, you always want to actually attack the extremities. What is that? Well, the expansions were set up in a line expansion. You want to kill, not kill, but, well, if you can kill it, but you want to get the third base or the main base. I think sticking in the natural was the worst possible situation, because what happens there? Well, I know exactly where your Void Rays are, number 1. My Queens are in the best possible spot because they can actually travel either towards the third base or the main base, the most efficient. Think, if I'm all in the main base, your Queens are kind of going to stick over to the bottom side, right? If I just go around, well, you actually don't have any map vision of where my Void Rays are. I can actually surprise you at your third. At least it gives him options, but staying in the natural was a pretty key, I would say, blunder by WhiteRa, and that's why he wasn't able to get anything done with that double Stargate play.
Yeah, and of course the follow-up, as we all know, the expansion with so much gas, 800 gas or so, that could have been reinvested in somewhere else. Normally we see a follow-up to base all in, but instead WhiteRa trying to play the macro game and was unsuccessful. The game was brought to you by Epson, the people, again, providing the projectors for NASL. Thank you so much. Visit Epson.com for all details about their products. We'll be back with game number 2 between Morrow versus WhiteRa. Don't go anywhere. More action from Division number 5 is coming up next.